Well, today I'd like to talk to you about an important factor of a raw food lifestyle, of changing what you're doing to make your life better, and that's loving yourself. You know, in Galatians 5:14 it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's very difficult to love your neighbor if you have never really learned to love you. One of the things that happened when I changed my lifestyle is that I forgave myself for the first time in my life. And with that, I learned to love me. When I learned to love me, I learned to accept me. And for the first time in 49 years, I was comfortable in my own skin. Well, what happened with that is I could accept other people's love for me. I could accept God's love for me in a way that I never could. And I could love others unconditionally because I was okay with me. It changed my world. It changed my life. It changed my outlook on life. I became positive. I was no longer comparing myself to other people. And even though this was like 2 days into changing my lifestyle and eating plant-based foods, I'd only lost maybe a pound. But I loved the way I looked. When I looked in the mirror, I saw somebody who was pretty for the first time. And if we can't love ourselves, it's real hard to have a positive self-talk. You know, you're on this journey. You're making progress. You're exercising. You're changing the way you think. You're changing the way you eat. If you eat something that maybe wasn't a good choice, what do you say to yourself? Do you say, oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm just going to blow it the rest of the day because I've already ruined today? Do you beat yourself up? Are you negative? You know, listen to the words that you say to yourself, and you'll find out how much you really love you. Because when you love something and you value it, you're going to be kind to it. You're going to speak well to it. You know, I remember being in a yoga class and the instructor saying, don't judge yourself. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And I'm laying there trying to get my body to do whatever he's wanting us to do. And then he says, don't say I'm too old to move my body this way. Don't say I can't do this, it hurts. Say I'm doing this because I'm going to better my life. I'm doing this because I'm going to get fit. You know, it's just sometimes just changing the way we say things can help us love ourselves more. And when we know we're doing things to better our lives, then we can stay on focus and stay on task. So I encourage you to find out if you love yourself. You know, listen to your self-talk and see what you're saying. And again, it's hard to celebrate something you don't love. So as we're talking about celebrating yourself and celebrating the small victories, I encourage you to forgive yourself if you need to learn to love you, and to move forward in this life of vitality. Okay, today we have a fun recipe, 2 fun recipes actually, but cashew cheese. This is by far one of the favorite nut-based cheeses that I make. And we're going to start out with 2 cups of cashews. Now, cashews, any nut that I use, I soak. I'll soak it in pure water. Cashews I only soak for 2 to 4 hours. And I soak them and then I measure them. So this is 2 heaping cups of cashews. Oops. Let's start in the right order. Remember I said last week that you need to put whatever is softest in the blender first. If I were to put the nuts in here first and then the bell pepper on top, it would get bogged down. So here we have a red bell pepper, and I'm just going to cut it right under where the green stem is. When we do that, I can pull out the seeds, the pith, and then we just can take this and break off the stem and throw that in. And again, with the Vitamix, we don't need to make these in, I'm going to shake out these seeds here. We don't need to cut them in small pieces. Then we're going to add our nuts. And cashews are a nut that we use to make a lot of cheeses. You can make cheesecake, amazing desserts, amazing cheeses out of cashews because they blend so well. And cashews are actually not a nut. They're a legume. They're in the same family as peanuts and peas and lentils. We're going to use 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Oops. And 1 teaspoon of salt. So the recipe is 2 cups of cashews, 1 bell pepper, 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and a teaspoon of salt. All right, so this takes just a little bit to get it blending. And again, once I get things that are where it's blended and it's not chunky, you'll see me again pulling up the tamper so it can start to pull down, because that's when it gets really smooth and creamy. All right. You can see how smooth that is. It's absolutely perfect. This recipe is hard to mess up. And again, this is my basic recipe: 2 cups of nuts, 1/4 cup of lemon, and you can add a yellow bell pepper and a little bit of nutritional yeast, and it will become nacho cheese. You can, instead of a bell pepper, you can add water and basil or rosemary and make basil cheese or rosemary cheese. It's endless what you can do with the basic recipe. So I'm going to put this in this bowl. And if you don't have a high power blender, it will be challenging to make this, because the nuts really do need to be blended smooth. Some people do it in a food processor, and if you let it go for 5, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes you can get a fairly good consistency with the cashews. Now again, you're going to have nutrients because we've got the nuts are soaked, and so the enzyme inhibitor has been released, which I believe we talked about, I think the first week maybe. So there's food enzymes in this that are going to help us digest. And it's full of nutrients, but it also is high in calories because it's nut-based. So this is not something you want to sit down and eat a bowl of like this. 2, 3, 4 ounces is going to be more than enough. And you'll find that because it's full of nutrients, it's not going to require a lot.